Hi, Nuri. Jan. Hey, Jan, can you hear me?
I can hear everybody. I can hear several people though.
Well, it's because they're muted and they haven't unmuted themselves. You must be Nuri. You're Jan. Yeah.
I am Nuri.
I just made this sign because I do groups on Zoom. So I made this sign to show people that haven't used it before how to unmute themselves.
Ah.
Jan Marie, where are you sitting?
I'm in my home office.
Are you in Denver?
In Denver, technically in Wheat Ridge.
Okay.
I live, so that's just west. I live right near Sloan's Lake, if you know the Denver area.
Yeah.
So
I'm in Colorado Springs.
Oh yeah, I lived in Colorado Springs for many years. I lived right by the School for the Deaf and Blind.
Okay.
At Platt, and I can't think of the cross street, but just off Platt. Yeah.
I grew up at 44th and Utica, right in your neck of the woods by Sloan's Lake. Always went down there. I was close, but now I live in Cap Hill.
Cool.
We're just waiting for Sam and some of the other. We have 3 of the 4 people who have volunteered to be officers, interim officers, temporary officers. So when they get on the line, we'll be able to get started and get the show on the road. Hopefully it'll be quick.
Great.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Mary.
Oh, you do see me. Okay, I'm trying to figure this out.
You're good.
Okay, good.
So may I ask who's joined by telephone there so that I can record your name for the notes?
Yeah, this is Kara Johnson Hufford.
And this
This
is
is Tracy McLean.
Mary Guy.
All right, nice to meet you, Tracy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So, Chris Siegel here. How you doing?
Hi, Chris. Nice to meet you. This is Murray. It looks like we have two of our three officers that are going to be able to join us today. So we're just going to wait for Sam to show up, and then we'll vote and see if we want to confirm these people as our interim temporary officers to serve until March or so. Or, I mean, May or so, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So who else do we have on the line? We have Gregory and a couple more calls.
Keith Reister.
Yeah, and can you hear me? This is Kara Johnson Hufford on the phone as well.
I hear you, Kara. Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
Great.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you. It's all good. I'm in a conference call, so we're trying to act like I'm intelligent.
Hi, everybody. This is Greg. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was having trouble with the Zoom app on my computer, so I switched to my phone.
Thank you, Greg. What's your last name? I'm sorry, Greg.
It's Patin, P-A-T-I-N.
Howdy, this is Keith Reister. Just letting you know I'm on here. Didn't know if it's unmuted.
Thank you, Keith. I got it. Got you, too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Perfect.
This is Jack Etheridge.
Thank you, Jack. I got you down, too. We're just waiting for Sam Hutling at CSU to come on, and he's going to facilitate the meeting once he's on.
Great.
And there he is. There's Sam. So I think we have enough people here. We have 3 of the 4 officers here, Sam. So whenever you're ready to go, you can explain what's going on, and we can get started.
Sam, unmute your mic.
How's that?
Great.
A little better. Thank you. Hey, folks, how you all doing today?
Good.
Looks like we have 14 participants. Apologies for being late. Couldn't get Zoom to open. But let's get started. Nuri, do you mind, have you guys talked about anything thus far, or am I jumping in right at the right time?
You're in.
Right.
We were just waiting for you, although I did tell him that we have 3. We have Tracy McLean, Chris Siegel, and yourself on. So that's there's 3 of the 4 officers that were of the interim officers. Put it in first thing in the meeting, I think.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, well, let's get started then. We put out a quick agenda. We figured we would give you folks a little bit of background about the conversation that took place last week, a little bit of background related to the process that Nuriel and I put together earlier this week, which we've since changed for some pretty practical reasons, and also talk about sort of the task at hand related to finalizing documents, creating a leadership structure, in an effort to get the chapter off the ground and hopefully up and running by next meeting, March 9th, at the international conference. So with that, we had a really productive meeting about 2 weeks ago. There was roughly 10 of us on the phone. And really what we focused on at that point was the documents needed to found a chapter, as well as the leadership structure needed to found a chapter. Nuriel and I were sort of designated as the folks to sort of lead us in that direction. I hope most of you saw the emails that were sent out earlier this week. In a nutshell, we tried to find folks that were interested in the 4 or 5 leadership positions that we need. What we ran into was that not many folks, either because it was midweek and they didn't see the emails, or just because of life taking over, we received fewer than we thought in terms of interested parties. And so we decided to move in the direction where we would set up an interim leadership board and use that as an opportunity to sort of build towards official elections sometime most likely in about 6 months. And so with this group, we wanted to specifically talk about that process, the positions that we have, as well as the areas of focus that we're going to need to sort of highlight in the next, roughly in the next 6 months to get the chapter off the ground. Those areas are newsletter and communications, membership and recruitment, creating a committee around the inaugural first Colorado conference, having some folks designated to develop an initial budget and conduct financial management, having some folks dedicated to talking about what the annual officer elections would look like, especially the first officer elections. And we sort of added in other programming, events, and geographic distribution. At the end, I'd like to quickly kind of do some action items, a little meeting recap, any new to-do items that come out today. I'm going to be taking notes. Would it be beneficial to quickly go around and have everyone introduce themselves? I'd like to know who else is on the phone and where you're from. So with that sort of high-level introduction, why don't we do that? And I can kick it off really quickly. My name is Sam Hodeling. I currently run the John Strayer Center for Public Service and Leadership here at CSU. I have a background in public administration, working for cities and running nonprofits, and have an MPA from the University of Kansas. So really excited to meet with and work with you folks, and excited to get this chapter off the ground.
Cool. My name is Tracy McLean, and I am a UCD MPA student with a specialization in environmental policy management and law. And I'm also secretary and founding member of the UCD ICMA student chapter. So I'm really excited to participate in this. It's not my first time helping to found a local chapter, so I'm excited to exchange ideas and be part of the process.
Thanks, Tracy.
I'll jump in. My name is Greg Patan. I'm an MPA student at UC Denver with a concentration in emergency management and homeland security. I have never been involved in ASPA, but I have helped to found regional VOADs, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. So I'm used to working on things like this.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
I'll jump in. Keith Reister. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Littleton, originally from the East Coast, an MPA guy out of Penn State.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Jan Marie Brennan. I'm an MPA student at UCD. I work at Education Commission of the States in education policy, and I have a background. I was Deputy Director of Cultural Affairs for the city, so events is kind of maybe where I might have some of the most applicable skill set.
Great.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Sarah Johnson-Hufford. I am an MPA grad from UCD in the winter of 2015. I'm currently the branch chief over health facility quality at the State Department of Public Health and Environment. Most of my background and expertise is in health systems management and policy.
Great, thank you.
I can go ahead and jump in. My name is Christopher Sigel. I'm wrapping up the final portions of the dissertation phase for a doctorate in public administration, a DPA degree with Capella University. Hope to defend the dissertation here in the next 3 or 4 months. That once it gets through final committee and dean and all that with Capella. I have 26 years in the Air Force, retired 10 years ago. Currently work for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in Boulder. I do have an MPA from Troy State University, so I'm enjoying public service. I'm also an executive committee member with the Colorado Federal Executive Board. So this is a rich opportunity for me to continue to serve, because I believe in servant leadership. Everything's about serving and collaborating, and looking forward to seeing everybody at the conference next week.
Great, thank you.
Hi, this is Kitty Woolley. I'm sitting in Colorado Springs. I'm coming from the practitioner side also, like Chris. I just retired from a career in federal government and moved back here from Washington, D.C. I actually worked at the Department of Education. I have friends in Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and I'm thinking like I could hook half of you guys up right now. But so like Anne Marie, I'll probably be the most used in the area of programming. And one of the things I've been doing for 14 years on the side and now do in the middle is hooking up a network of 500 or 600 people around the country who continue working on professional development, their own, and who want to make government better. So if there, I'll sit on, I don't know if there's anything I can do for you. I think it might be in the programming area.
Okay, great.
So I'm Nuri. I guess you've all met me via my emails. I just basically wanted to get involved. I had a couple of meetings about 7 months ago. I'm a student at University of Colorado, Denver, getting my PhD in my dissertation phase, and my committee chair is also on the line, the great Mary Guy. And I wanted to get involved to try to get the ASPA Colorado chapter rebooted about 6 or 8 months ago, and it had already been getting rebooted when I jumped in. And then we just sort of continued talking until we got these email addresses for everyone. And then I said, you know what, we need to try and set up something so that when we get to the conference on the 9th, and this is Sam and I, so that when we get to the conference on the 9th, we can do something constructive and really move the chapter forward rather than just losing all of our momentum. That's why I got involved. And I'm going to be focusing on elections and getting the proper elections filled out. And I know a lot about the documents because I've been working with Sean McCandless on those.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Great. Can you hear me? This is Mary Guy. Good. And I'll just introduce myself as I'm sort of the been there, done that member of this whole group. So thank you all for being so interested in ASPA. And thank you so much for wanting to vitalize a good chapter here. Years ago, I was a chapter president and board member and so forth. And years ago, I was president of National ASPA. And I have been very active in it for decades now. And it has always been a consternation to me that when I moved to Colorado a decade ago from Florida, that in fact we didn't have a viable chapter here anymore. So this is all just wonderful to see this kind of energy, and I stand ready to not do all the work I've done before, but to stand ready to help in any sort of behind the curtain way that I can to make sure that everything goes well for you.
Excellent. Thank you.
This is Jack Etheridge. I'm recently retired actually a year ago now. That'd be last March, as city manager in Thornton. I've got a little over 40 years of experience in local government in Georgia, South Carolina, and Colorado. And I think I could echo Mary's sentiments. I was surprised to learn after I retired that there was not an active ASPA chapter, and And I think it's a great organization and it'd be a great addition to public policy here in the state.
Thank you, Jack, and for your service. Anyone else on the line that we haven't heard from? I think maybe one or two folks. Going once? Twice? All right. If anybody would like to give an introduction that we didn't get to, I think we got to most, but it looks like maybe one or two other folks are on the line. I think we should just get started and sort of get into the crux of this. I wanted to give folks sort of a high level update on the conversation that Nuriel and I were on last, I guess it was on February 13th. So roughly 2 weeks ago. We were joined by Lisa from ASPA, Sean from UCD, who's done a lot of work, a ton of work, getting these documents together, and I believe has been a part of these conversations for over a year. Philip, who's working on membership for ASPA, Don, Juniper from UCD, myself and Nuri, and the final one was Susanna, who's on, or I believe was on the ASPA National Council at one point. So ASPA is looking to increase the number of national chapters, specifically in District 4, which is the geographically largest ASPA district, but also has the least number of chapters, and that's where we are. The process for reestablishing a chapter is that we need a recruitment plan, reasonable budgets, a copy of a program plan, and chapter officers, which is why we're sort of here today and sort of developing a leadership structure and moving that forward. One of the exciting things is that since we have critical mass, seed money does exist for the first year or two of the chapter. So once we officially get off the ground, some money will be available for us to conduct programming and do things along those lines. Our preliminary chapter meeting is 4:45 to 6 p.m. on Friday, March 9th in Mineral Hall G toward the beginning of the conference. So I hope that many of the folks, if not all of the folks on the call today, can join us. And like I said earlier, what really came out of that meeting was that Nuriel and I were going to be discussing the development of a process that leads to chapter officers. We didn't get that far, but we do have an interim leadership structure that we're moving forward with, which I believe is Chris as co-president, Susan Opp from CSU as co-president and treasurer, myself as membership coordinator, and I am looking down at my list. Nuriel, who, remind me, secretary? I believe that was
Tracy.
Tracy, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
Tracy McClain. So, yeah, and there are three. The only one who's not on the line is Susan Opp.
Yeah. Great. And so along with that, we wanted to sort of take a pulse of the group today, and see how folks felt about moving forward with that as the interim leadership structures so that we could get things off the ground and make decisions and then move forward towards official elections in the next few months. The other big topic today is around finding roughly 2 to 3 volunteers that are interested in developing an annual work plan and soliciting additional volunteers at the meeting on March 9th for the specific committee areas that I went over earlier. And to refresh your memory, the first was newsletter and communications. The second was membership and recruitment, which I'll be leading up. The third is the annual Colorado conference. The fourth is the budget and financial management. Fifth is officer elections. And then sixth is programming, both events and ensuring that we maintain a geographic distribution in the state. And so with that being said, does Nuriel, do you want to jump in there and give anyone your thoughts, or should we open it up for sort of an open forum for a little bit?
So let me just say 2 things. One is that the documents, the bylaws, and everything else, including a budget, and these 4 names are going to be presented before the ASPA National Board tomorrow to make us an official chapter tomorrow. So if that all works out. Now, with that being said, I think I'm recording this call. So I'm on the call twice because the other one is recording it. And with that in mind, I'd like to give anyone who has an objection to the appointment of these four interim officers, I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak up, just so that we know that. Otherwise, I'm going to call it a unanimous vote to confirm these four officers.
Yeah, and I was going to say, on the contrary, thank you to the four individuals for stepping up. I think it makes it a lot smoother and simpler if we just start with the interim group, as you guys suggest. So thank you. I think it's a great idea and very supportive.
Thank you.
I agree.
We are also open to contrary opinions, and so if anybody sees an issue with both the process, we'd like to hear that now, and that's one of the reasons why we're all here today. All right. Seeing no opposition, I think that Nuriel, we should move forward with submitting the documents along with the list that we put together as the interim leadership structure, so that we can officially formalize as a chapter. What this means is that at the March 9th meeting, we will both have our first meeting, and it's also going to be somewhat of a celebration, because it's not going to be, rolling through and trying to figure out the documents and trying to figure out a leadership structure there. We're going to have that in place, which is going to allow us to have our first formal meeting and really sort of move things forward, which was the thing that we were really tasked with, was trying to figure out how we can do this in a way, both get something off the ground that people are comfortable with, and also move all of this forward in a timely fashion. So thank you all for being on the call today and for your support. This is good. I think that it would be beneficial, at least from my perspective now, to sort of talk about those 6 committees. And I can read through them one last time if folks are interested in me doing that. What we're looking for today is really, are you interested in leading one of these committees for roughly the next 6 to 12 months as these committees get off the ground and develop essentially a work plan or an action plan related to the overarching chapter, our goals, and how we're going to operationalize this stuff. I mean, we're doing a lot at the same time. I know we all have, many of us have full-time jobs and are in school, it sounds like. I'm in that boat too here at CSU. And so we all have a lot on our plates. At the same time, we have a lot of institutional knowledge just on the call today, especially in the larger chapter and the folks that are interested in joining. And so if we all take a task or two, I think we're going to be able to make a lot of headway on these larger items over the next 6 to 12 months and really put ourselves in a good position to be a successful chapter. And so why don't I read those one last time? If I can go back, if not,
So let
And
me
they're
also
on the
say,
agenda too.
Perfect. Okay.
so let me also say that we have 180 members currently signed up. And so I expect to see a lot of those at the meeting. And I think that those people will be a great help to whoever does agree to take on each of these roles. So maybe if we just go through them one by one and get people to volunteer to be leaders.
Yeah, let's do that. So why don't we start with newsletter and communications? Does anybody have any ideas related to that, or are they interested in maybe taking a leadership role of that group for the first year?
Could we just go down the? I'm sorry. Could we just go down the entire list one more time?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. The first area is newsletter and communications. The second area is membership and recruitment. I'll be taking a leadership role on that, and so if anybody would like to join me, obviously, feel free. The third will be the inaugural Colorado Conference, which is everything from logistics to sponsorships to theme. So that's a pretty loaded one. That's probably going to be a good-sized group. The fourth area is overseeing the budget and the financial management of the chapter. The fifth is annual officer elections. Since we're going to be coming in with somewhat of an interim leadership structure, we need to decide when we're going to be having the annual officer elections and put some parameters around that. Obviously, ASPA has some guidelines related to that, but we'll still need somebody to sort of take the leadership role then. And then the last category, 6, is programming, general programming, which we've designated as both events as well as maintaining a geographic distribution in the state. We're probably, and this is personal perspective based on other associations I've been on, statewide associations, many times there is a tension between the Front Range and the rest of the state.
Yeah.
And maintaining some balance is critical really representing the state well. And so we're putting that in programming as sort of something for folks to think about. So why don't we start with newsletter and communications? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add, or would they like to volunteer?
This is Tracy, and I'll volunteer for that. I think that it kind of goes well with the other responsibilities. I have a secretary, and I also get the PA Times, which is the national ASPA newsletter already. So I think that we can just kind of adapt that to our local needs, and I have some ideas for that already. So, I'd be willing to do that.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy, this is Keith Reister. I already write a column for PA Times, so I'm more than willing to help out on some of the publications and newsletter side here. So you can connect with me on that.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Keith. Any discussion or suggestions? If not, we can just keep this moving quickly because I know we have all other stuff to do. I see Nuri shaking or nodding his head in agreement. So let's do that. Let's go to the next subject area, which is membership and recruitment. Would anybody like to help me with that?
Sam, I'd like to. It's Greg.
Great. Anybody else? And Greg, we can touch base on offline and meet next week if when I'm down in Denver, and we can chat then, get a cup of coffee or something, and talk about our plan. So
sounds good. Yeah.
Great. Let's head down to probably the big puppy, the inaugural Colorado Conference.
This is Jan Marie. I'm certainly in. I think it's going to have to be done by a committee, know, given the complexity and variety, but I'm certainly in.
Great.
And Jan, I think that Sean McCandless here at CU Denver already has some ideas on that, and is going to help you out quite a lot. And he's very good, although he's leaving, unfortunately, in July, but he can get you started.
Okay.
And Jan Marie, I completely agree. I think that that's going to have to be a pretty robust committee. I think that whatever the executive structure looks like at that point is also going to take a big part in that. We just wanted to have somebody designated as sort of a point person early on to start hosting conversations, collecting ideas. So I have you down. This is fantastic. Thank you for volunteering. Let's head on to the next one, which is budget and financial management.
Can we volunteer Susan up for that?
I believe you just did, and I'll second that. And my colleague Susan, she's fantastic and has a ton of experience in the field and good connections. And so I will let her know that she was voluntold. I believe that's the session. And if that doesn't go over very well, we'll touch base and have a conversation about it next week and make sure that we get somebody for that committee. But I think based on the fact that she's the interim treasurer, she's probably the right person. Excellent. Anybody else like to join Susan in working on that? All right. Let's move on to annual officer elections. We are going to be creating a process, a consistent process to have annual officer elections. Based on just working with Nuriel for the last week, I think that you'd be a fantastic person to be on this committee, but I also would love to hear from other folks in the group who would be interested.
I mean, obviously, it's really great if we can get 2 people on this, but I would definitely want to be one of those people. But 2 people who can look over each other's shoulders and make sure everything's fair and is done by the book.
Are there already templates or guidelines that's being used by other ASPA chapters that would help with that process?
We have a series of bylaws that we have to abide by. And they include, we have to elect 6 to 8 council members and 1 president and 1 president-elect, which this year obviously will be 2 co-presidents. So we have to essentially find 8 to 10 people to take over to become this leadership council. What is now the interim leadership council is this. And we have to find 10 people to be elected to this.
So is this more of a process of kind of the process is already identified, and what we're looking for is a group that will recruit people to serve.
Yeah, recruit people to serve and make sure that the election is run fairly and smooth.
Okay. Well, this is Jack. When I was president of the Colorado City County Managers Association, we set up a new board and election process, and so I'd be willing to help if that would be helpful to whoever's going to be running this.
Excellent.
I think that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. We missed you at the CCCMA conference 2 weeks ago as well.
Well, I missed you too. I happened to be in the Bahamas at the time. Thought about coming, but decided no, I better stay in the Bahamas.
We all got hit by a snowstorm on the way back on Saturday, so I think you made the right decision by staying in the Bahamas.
I even feel better. I even feel better now.
All right. Well, the good news too is that I think once we open it up to the larger group of 180, my gut tells me that there'll be a few more folks that'll be willing to put in some time on that. And so the last area is programming, and as I said, there's a few different components to that. I did hear a few folks sort of mention in the introductions that they thought that programming might be a good place for them to plug in. And so would anybody like to volunteer to either lead that group or be one of the committee members on that group?
Well, this is, Kitty, I guess you can see me. I had in mind that what I would do is shovel resources and connections and that sort of thing to whoever led the committee. If you can't find someone to lead the committee, I could, but I thought I heard Jan Marie, I thought I heard you say that you were interested in this. So is this something you also want to do, or what's your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to suggest that somebody else probably take that on, just knowing the scope of the Colorado Conference committee. So, but I was kind of thinking the same thing, though. I imagine that they'll go together. Mm-hmm. I mean, other events and programming will lead up, and obviously the
absolutely
main events and programming. So we could.
So, Sam, I would be willing to start that and to. I tend to work with small committees, and I think you're right. There will be some other people that'll want to do this. And I actually was thinking two tensions before the call. One was Front Range, rest of the state, and one was academics and practitioners. And it sounds as though that's not, that's might be less of a focus in this chapter, but the work I've done with ASPA National when I lived in DC indicates that there's always a little sort of tension there or misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot we could do, and I think it would just be super fun to have some in-person meetups around the state, etc. I'd be glad to try it, and then you guys can, sort of hit me over the head if it's not the right thing. But I tend to take direction well, so.
Yeah, and I can volunteer myself because since I'll be looking at membership.
Okay.
I think having a role in programming events is obviously pretty critical.
Yep.
And so I'll probably be able to join you on that committee. And I think that the way that I envision by kind of appointing leads to each one of these, this gives the opportunity to stand up at the March 9th meeting and say, hey, I'm leading this committee for the first year. We're going to be putting stuff together. And if two people come and say, oh, I'd really like to help you out, that's fine. Mm-hmm. If we get 10 for some of these larger functions, I mean, it'll just show that people are very interested in participating and adding. So yeah, this just gives us an opportunity to have a point person, and I think that we'll get more folks interested at the moment.
Okay, I have a question about that. I was actually only registered for the conference for the 10th because I've got some other things going on. I could drive up there on the 9th too and probably just come for that meeting and then
leave. I think you do that.
If I can't make it, Can you, would you do that?
Yeah, I will absolutely try. I actually have a 4 o'clock meeting, so I'm going to be probably getting there at about 5 o'clock, so about a few minutes late. And so hopefully I can just jump in and then play point person and try to both get folks interested in recruitment as well as.
Well, I tell you what, let me call the ASPA office and ask them if they'll let me just show up for that and not charge me a day's registration, because I really can't stay for the whole day.
Yeah, and I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean,
Okay.
We're creating a new chapter, and we want to get all hands on deck. Yeah.
Why don't you just figure I'll be there for that meeting? I wasn't planning on it, but I think it's important to have momentum at starting at that meeting. So, okay.
Great. All right. Would anybody else like to join that group?
I would.
This is Jack. I think that this is an excellent opportunity to bring the academic world and the day-to-day practitioners together. And so anything that I could do on that committee to, if that would be of help, I would be glad to help out.
Thanks, Jack. That's a great.
Hey, Jack, that's good, because I'd already written your name down.
Somebody else was jumping in right earlier. Who was that?
It was Chris. I was just going to say I'd like to be auxiliary on that, participate.
Thanks, Chris. Excellent. So we have a good number of folks for that group. Does anybody else have anything they want to say related to that topic?
Just remind me, what room is that meeting in Friday afternoon?
Mineral Hall G.
Mineral Hall
G, as in.
Got it.
Go.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So that was fantastic. Thank you, folks, for volunteering, making our lives easier, and it's looking like we're going to have some great folks to lead these groups moving forward, build some systems. So I'm pretty optimistic about all of this. Does anybody have any? We had things at the end, related to action items in the agenda. Does anybody have overarching themes that they want to add? Thoughts related to the conversation today? Thoughts related to the March 9th meeting? I really like that we've talked about both the tension between academics and practitioners and the Front Range and the rest of the state, because I think those are themes that we need to keep in mind as we sort of move through this development phase to make sure that we have equity, balance, and that we are addressing things on the front end versus the back end. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to bring up related to any of that, or the meeting today, the meeting on the 9th, general thoughts, etc.?
So I assume I'll be running the meeting on the 9th. Is that correct?
That was my understanding too, Chris. So
I'll after this gathering today, I'll connect back with you and we're gonna see what we can do to finalize.
Yeah, and I know that Susan wanted to talk to you about that as co-president and try to figure out a system with you, and so it might just be best to schedule a phone call next week and talk about that agenda as well as the task at hand.
Sounds good.
Great, thanks, Chris. All right, anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
No, but this is Jack. I'd like to thank everyone for all the work you've done. I think that this is going to be really good for the profession and good for the state.
Thank you, Jack. I support that wholeheartedly. I think you're correct. This is fantastic.
Really looking forward to meeting you all.
Yeah.
Twice.
All right.
See you on Saturday.
I'm getting in a message on the bottom. Would it be possible to send out an email about the 3-9 meeting afternoon? Yeah, we'll do that, Kara. We can take care of that. All right. With that, I look forward to meeting you all in person, and thank you all for taking the time today. This is exciting, and it's all moving forward, which is great to see.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Disconnect.